Okay, children, two more chapters and the night visitor will be over. Strange news. Andrew walked home through the dark streets. He arrived at his flat at about 4 o'clock. Immediately, he went to bed. He slept for more than 12 hours. When he woke up, he thought about the 2 nights at the laboratory. He thought about his work with Professor Hamilton. Was it all a dream? He turned on the radio. One person died early yesterday morning when two cars crashed in the fog. The accident happened on the A329 between Osterfield and Easton Airport. The accident, Andrew remembered now, two police officers had come to the laboratory early on Saturday morning. They had gone to the accident, so it wasn't a dream. He had been at the lab. He had worked with Professor Hamilton. They had finished their work. He got out of bed and went to the phone. He tried to phone Jo. He wanted to tell her the good news, but there was no reply. Perhaps she was away for the weekend. He tried to phone Professor Hamilton too, but there was no reply. Andrew made a meal and then he tried to phone the professor again. But again there was no reply. Andrew made a meal and then he tried to phone the professor again, but there was no reply. He sat down and watched the television. Soon a film started. It was an old black and white film called A Visit from the Dead. Andrew watched it and then went back to bed. On Monday morning, Andrew arrived early at the university and he was very happy. He couldn't wait. He had to tell everybody the good news. He went into the laboratory. Jo and the professor had not arrived. He got out his keys and unlocked the cupboard. He took out his papers. He read them again. The door opened and Jo came in. Andrew jumped up from his chair. Have you heard? Have you heard? He shouted. Yes, replied Jo. He looked sad. It was terrible news. I'm very sorry. Terrible news? Very sorry? What do you mean? It's a wonderful news. What are you talking about, Andrew? Our work. Professor Hamilton and I have finished it. We worked together here all day on Saturday and all Saturday and Saturday night. It's finished. We've done it. He held up the papers. Jo looked at Andrew and said nothing. What's wrong? Asked Andrew. Aren't you happy about it? Professor Hamilton and we've made the compound, and we've made it before Professor Fisher. I don't understand, said Jo. Professor Hamilton is dead. She died in a car accident. She was driving to the airport and she had crashed in the fog. I tried to phone you on Saturday night, but there was no reply. You're wrong, said Andrew. Professor Hamilton and I were here. She was here with me. No, she died at about 5 o'clock on Saturday morning. Look, it's all here in the newspaper. 20 years later. 20 years later, Professor Andrew Scott was walking beside the River Oster. A few meters away, Mark Watson and his young daughter were fishing. Look, Dad, I've got something, shouted the girl. Quick, pull it in. Oh, that's a big fish. Can we eat it, Dad? Can we take it home and cook it? Of course we can. Andrew smiled. He looked at the river. The water was clean now. He was thinking about Professor Hamilton and their work together 20 years ago. That was a very strange weekend, he thought. Nobody believed my story about Professor Hamilton. People had told him the professor is dead. She wasn't in the laboratory with you. You dreamed it. But we understand. You were very tired. You were hard with no sleep for over 30 hours. We understand. You did the work alone. Andrew stopped on a bridge and looked down at the river. The water was clean now. There was no more pollution. He watched the water below his feet. He thought about the night 20 years ago. Andrew remembered the cold wind when Professor Hamilton came through the door of the laboratory. Andrew remembered her quiet voice. We can make this new compound, Andrew, and I know we can. It was a dream, said Andrew. I was tired. She didn't come that night. She was dead. These things don't happen, or do they? Okay, my boys and my girls, that's the end of the night visitor.